Well, thank you for joining us today. I have Michael Cutter with us today. He's one of our practitioners at Discover Your Spiritual Gifts. And I wanted to spend some time today with him sharing what he does, his journey, how he's gotten to where he is today, and what he offers to others along this path to help them. So, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, Violet. Yes, I'm happy to be here. Happy to be a part of the great community that you've built there and expanding my work. Um, where do we start? I
I
mean,
love your background, by the way. Such beautiful things. Your drums and all your stuff in the background. Talk to me a little bit because the first time I met you, we talked about your shaman work. So, what led you down the path of diving deeper into shamanism and some of the tools and healing that happens in that area?
right. Yeah, yeah. Well, that's a big story, but I'll try to make it real short here. You know, I grew up with health challenges, a lot of chronic health issues. And early in life, that led me to, looking at alternative ways of healing and so on. It led me into this deeper inquiry into, my own health, how to manage that. And, very much into dealing with psychological issues and challenges there, and traumas that I experienced. Um, Now, in 2010, 2009, 2010, I became very ill. I ended up in the hospital. I was on life support and I had just completely given up on life. I was overwhelmed by challenges. I'd lived homeless. I was in a really difficult place. And, um, I just surrendered. I had developed and cultivated a strong sense of spirituality within myself, but I just wasn't dealing with life. And I just surrendered and I said, I'm going to stop doing anything because it's not working anyway. So I'm just going to stop trying. And if there's some purpose for me in this life, then I'm going to let spirit show that to me. So I just let go, and my life just went down, and it led me to being in the hospital on life support in critical condition. And after a couple of weeks of that, I went into a coma. They didn't think I was going to live. I was lucid in the experience. I was very aware, but people were talking as if I wasn't there. And during that process, I had a series of experiences, and then I had a vision that showed me, that really called me back into life, that showed me exactly what I needed to do. And a part of that was working with shamans. It was working with indigenous shamans that, could help me to heal my body. There's a lot I needed to do between that time and actually working with them. But I did what I needed to do, and eventually I met them. And, they were really the first people that could help me in a really profound way. It was very simple and very practical what they did for me, and how they helped me to overcome the challenges that I was experiencing. And I just loved it, the whole process and everything about it. And I became a student to some of them over time. And with their encouragement and the encouragement of the people that I connected with in my life during that time, I started doing that work and offering that to the people around me. um, and then partway through that journey, this is about 6 or 7 years ago, I worked with a shaman who uh, I just fell in love with immediately. And he's a part of some South American traditions. And he read my hands. And it was really profound what he saw. Within about 3 seconds of looking at my hands, he asked me a question. And it really hit the core of, the challenges I was experiencing. And so I apprenticed with him, and I still study with him to this day. But I started learning the hand analysis, and he introduced me to one of his teachers, who was Richard Unger, who's the founder of the IIHA. And I have since been studying in Richard's specific style, learning the life purpose hand analysis. And so, it's all kind of morphed into this sphere of healing work that is really life purpose work. And the shamanic work that I do is really about healing people's relationship with themselves. It's about healing trauma and overcoming challenges that we experience, and the big challenges we experience typically through trauma. And the life purpose work allows us to really understand those dynamics and how it's working in a very practical and profound way in our lives. How does it, what are the challenges in relationships? What are the challenges in career? What are our challenges just in understanding ourselves? It's a very complex dynamic. But here in our hands, there's a very simple, once you understand it, but very profound map of our psychology. It's very different than what we think of as palmistry, or hand reading. We don't tell people's future. We don't care about any of that stuff. What we're looking at is what's going on and why people are experiencing things the way that they are. So there's a very rich dynamic here that exists in the fingerprints and all the shape of the fingers, the hands. There's quite a few different dynamics. A lot of people are aware that there are specific lines in the hands. We look at those and we develop a very accurate map of the psychology, both from a soul perspective and a personal perspective, and put that together to create this picture of what we call life purpose. And it's about all of the big ways that we experience life. It's about relationships. It's about career. It's about just our simple way of being, that we show up in life. How are we called to be? Are we passionate? Are we more reserved? Are we very emotional? Do we feel called into service? Or are we more drawn into relationships, to experience relationships and understand who we are through the challenges that exist there? It's going to be different dynamics for each person, but that's what we look at. And then, through the healing work and through practical, simple things that we discuss in the sessions, people go away with very tangible, practical things that they can do to help utilize those gifts that they have in their life.
I love that. I love that. And you talked about, we've talked about earlier about how your gifts correlate a lot of times to the challenges or the things that are happening. And when you can make that awareness, it really helps. So share with us a little bit on what you've experienced in that, because that I thought was really interesting. That, a lot of us say, oh, it's been tough. Well, maybe that's part of your gifts of working through that. So share with us a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, yeah. So a lot of the people that I end up talking with are, they have a real calling into some kind of spirituality, right? They're the ones that want to know the answers that this can give, So I find myself having discussions with a lot of healers, with spiritual people, but also creative people. And, those are people that are often steered in directions in life that don't really suit them, right? We all know what it was like going through high school. And, what are we going to do in our life? We're under all this pressure to make these decisions. And often for the sake of practicality, or because mom said or dad said, or I I had to, or, well, I experienced, um, this, experience was I was little, and now I'm afraid to do that anymore. Well, there's all these different things that we experience that take us into specific direction in life. And so often, I'll just talk about healers for a little minute, because there's going to be a lot of people in that world that are connecting with this video. Healers tend to experience trauma. They tend to experience a lot of challenges in relationships. And, those kind of experiences are what take us down into the depths of answering questions that only we can find in ourselves. And that's the path that leads us to the insights that many people need in the world. So we find ourselves in a unique position to offer help based on our own experiences that we've had and overcoming the challenges that lie in that path. So that's just a very brief kind of window into, the world of healers. But, I mean, let's be honest, a lot of healers are, a little bit challenged in life, right? I mean, it's no secret that life is rough. It's not easy to be a very spiritual healer type in this rational world of logistics and, and needing to be validated in scientific ways. So there are challenges there that we have to overcome into really accepting the gifts that we have and utilizing that in our lives, and even more so to make that gift that we carry what is sustaining and supporting us in our lives monetarily. That's a big one, for a lot of healers, to make that transition. But when you can do that, and it's what's generating income, when you can step back and you can look at that picture just a little bit, money is just, it's our ability to sustain ourselves in life. Whether we like it or not, it's a necessary thing. And when we are sustaining ourselves through our gift, that's our soul energy in this practical world merged into one. It becomes very powerful. And it's a feeling that is unmistakably fulfilling and gratifying, that you've overcome these challenges and you're inspired because you can help other people now. So that's some insight into, some of the experiences that healers have, but it's different for different people. This kind of work can apply to, very commonly to somebody who's in business leadership position. There's often power struggle issues. There's different dynamics that are related to being in a leadership role, and equally challenging sometimes experiences that people in those positions have. And then there's all of the rest of life, all creativity and, even scientific ways, there's challenges with that. People are very scientific minded, have a hard time sharing emotion typically, which compromises relationships. So this work can really help with all of that.
I love that. And I love that you're doing work around life purpose. And I love understanding that if we know what our life purpose is and we have a bigger awareness, that our life can improve and enhance and be better, because we may be off path or we may be in the wrong direction. And just getting that awareness and understanding what our gifts and our challenges can be can really help us improve our lives. And I love the fact that you can see information in the hands. And I know we talked earlier, and I wanted to share this with people because it's the question I always ask. Do our hands change? Can we change the information? Again, can we change our lives? And does it show up in our hands when we do?
Absolutely. It doesn't always show up in your hands, but typically it does. I mean, the lines change. I watch my hands change. I've watched some of the lines, they kind of come and go, and it's really fascinating to see those dynamics happening. It's from a very spiritual sort of perspective. I mean, life is, it's very changeable, it's very dynamic. This physical world is not nearly so solidified as, say, science or you know life in this reality would teach us, right? I mean, this table is pretty solid, but yet, if you look at the deep wisdom traditions and spiritual traditions, there's so many stories about seeing the uh, seeing beyond that, fixed nature of things, into a very transitory nature that is full of possibilities.
I love that.
On the other hand, that creating that change in our life is not easy. It takes addressing those core dynamics, the traumas, the deepest challenges, and sort of, you could just say struggling with that to overcome that challenge. And, it's a little bit like my personal experience. It's like I didn't see a point in living my life. It was just too difficult. I needed something that was meaningful enough to take on those challenges. And when you can understand what that meaning is, what that driving force, if you can connect with your soul and you can let that be what is moving through you in your daily practical life, then you've tapped into something that is very powerful within you. And life becomes not so static and fixed anymore. Change happens.
I love that. I love that. Thank you, Michael, for taking the time today to share your gifts with us, your journey. We have Michael's contact information listed below. You can check out his profile and his own website along with ours. And Michael and I hope to see each of you really soon. Thank you so much, Michael, for taking the time today.
You're very welcome. Thank you, Violet. And I look forward to meeting lots of you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Have an amazing day. All right. This time.